Hi, this is Carrie. It's been about a month and a half, I think, since I left my last video diary entry. That one I felt was a little long. Sorry. It was about half an hour long, so I'm going to try to keep the future entries shorter. Because it was so long, I think there's a possibility people didn't watch it through, which is fine. People's time is very valuable. But I'm just going to recap in this video exactly the surgery I'm going to have, because people who are watching this video, I'm guessing, are watching it because they're also going to have some kind of a spinal surgery, and I think it's important that you're comparing apples to oranges. And honestly, you can't really compare. Sorry, that's the dog behind me. Hi. You make your video debut. You can't really compare yourself to someone else because everyone is different. But anyway, this video is going to be just a recap of that, and then I'm going to update you on what's going on. So the surgery that I am scheduled to have is, let me think for a second, it is an anterior posterior, meaning both, interbody lumbar fusion. I think I said that right. And what they're going to do, well, let me show you these pictures first. This is, that's better, a normal healthy spine. This is not my spine. And what I want you to notice is that each of the discs it has like a whitish material inside of it, and that's the fluid inside the disc that keeps the disc nice and cushy. And this is what you want your discs to look like. The problem disc for me is this one on the bottom. This is the L5-S1 disc down here. This one is the L4-L5 disc, and that one could be a problem for me as well. That's still kind of up in the air, what we're going to do about that. I'll talk about that in a little bit. So let me show you. This is my MRI. And as you can see, the L5-S1 disc is smushed. There's really nothing left of it. It's not just smushed, it's worn down to almost nothing. As a result, these two vertebrae, this is the L5, this is the S1, these two vertebrae are rubbing bone on bone all the time. And that's very painful, and that's continuous, and that's not going to go away on its own. And there's not a whole lot I can do to alleviate that pain. And what you should notice is that the whitish area that you see on both of those vertebrae is bruising and inflammation of the bone from that constant bone rubbing on bone. And that's the biggest problem. And as you can see, the disc above it, this is the L4, L5 vertebrae, and that's the disc between them. That one's not looking so good either. We're not sure what's going to happen with that. I think some further testing might need to be done. Originally, nothing was going to be done with it. And that's still a possibility, but right now, they're still looking. So what they're going to do is they'll come in from the front, they'll make an incision, I guess sort of a C-section incision, and they'll go in from the front. They're going to remove this disc, clean out all the material, disc material that's in there, clean up the bone area if there's any bone spurs, and then they will insert one of, not one of these. These are both essentially the same kind of thing. They're slightly different. But they're going to insert a plastic spacer that looks something like one of these. And you can see there's little places for screws to go into the vertebrae. And there's two wells or spaces, empty spaces, in the plastic spacer. And what they do is they fill those wells with a material that encourages bone growth. I think it's called BMP. And the bone will grow right through the plastic spacer, thereby fusing these two vertebrae together. That takes, I keep hearing different numbers, so I'm not sure if I'm right about this, but that's going to take about 6 to 8 months, I'm told. And again, I think it depends on the person. Everybody's different. Your healing rates are different. Once they've put that plastic spacer in, then they flip you over and they have to put some screws in from the back. They make 2 incisions, one on either side of your spine, and then they put in other screws. Now, here is a picture of what that would look like. And you can see there's 4 screws, 2 from the front, 2 from the back. And there's some, I think there's some rods in there, I'm not really sure. So that's essentially what the surgery is. The last time we spoke, I was looking to get a second opinion at HSS, the Hospital for Special Surgery in New York City. And I did finally get that appointment. There were some obstacles to me getting that appointment, such as my images getting lost, whatever. But I did finally get the appointment. That surgeon agreed with the first surgeon that this would probably be the appropriate and best procedure for me to have for my particular situation. He was not quite as encouraging about, the possibility of a good outcome. I mean, he didn't have anything bad to say, but I think he just was really encouraging me to be cautious about going into this surgery. I think the numbers he gave me were something like 75 to 80% of the people who have this procedure have a good outcome. So that is something to think about. He basically said, you really don't want to consider this kind of surgery unless you're at your wit's end. But the fact is, I'm at my wit's end. I can't continue like this. At the time that I went to him, it just so happened that I had a particularly bad flare-up, I guess you call it, with my back. If this is immobile, I was right here. I was almost completely immobile. I was still pushing myself to go to work every day because I had to. I don't want to use up my sick days, and stuff has to get done. That's all there is to it. But what I did was I had another cortisone injection to get me through, which did wonders. It always does. I think what happened, I don't think anything, I don't think I injured myself in any way. It just seemed like the 4 injections that I had last year just wore off. Like that was like their expiration date or something, and that was it. They weren't working anymore, so my back had another flare-up. So that kind of proved to me, it was actually really good that it happened, I think, because I was really second-guessing and questioning whether or not I should have this surgery. Am I at a point where I really need it yet? I wasn't sure. I felt like I was walking around okay. I just couldn't do the things I used to be able to do, and maybe that's just a fact of life. But when this happened, it made it very clear to me that the injections I've been having are Band-Aids. They're temporary. They don't completely do what I need them to do, and I always wind up back in the same place. So it was very clear at that point that I really do need this surgery. So I'm kind of glad that happened. So I had another injection, which was my 7th injection. And you can't keep getting injections. And I don't know what happens if you do keep getting injections, but they're steroids and they're not good for you. And so far I don't feel like I've had any side effects from them. I've only had relief from them. But they're not fun to get. I have to take a day off of work every time I go get one. And, I think at this point I really just need to fix the problem instead of, continually putting Band-Aids on top of it. So that injection will get me through. I have decided to go with HSS, Hospital for Special Surgery in New York City. And that decision has nothing to do with my old surgeon or how I felt about him or anybody at his office. In fact, I really liked them a lot, and this was a really hard decision for me to make. But at the end of the day, I decided that, number one, it's the best place to go. And why shouldn't I go for the best? It's right here in New York City. I live very close to New York City. And I'm very lucky that I have it right here. Why shouldn't I take advantage of that? And the other thing that made me make this decision was that the Hospital for Special Surgery is known for having a very low infection rate. And the main reason for that is that no one walking into that hospital is sick. Everybody walking into that hospital has an injury. So, of course, they're going to have a lower infection rate. That just makes sense. So that kind of sold me. And so I decided that I am going to have it there. My surgery was scheduled for November 11th, which would have been this coming Monday. Today is Friday. Today's November 8th. And so it would have been right around the corner. And I know that Monday I'll be walking through my day, saying, oh, I wonder if, I would have had the surgery by now, or I wonder if this, or I wonder if that. It's kind of weird. But my new date is going to be January 3rd. And the reason for that is I've decided that it would be a good idea for me to switch my insurance plan, just to make sure that this is all covered. I have this one piece of hair that's making me crazy. Yeah. Whatever. So that insurance won't kick in until January 1st, so the surgery is scheduled for January 3rd. The one thing that the doctor said that he wants to possibly do, he's very on the fence about it, is do a discogram, because he wants to really know what's going on with that other disc, the L4, L5 disc. And so I really need to have a conversation with him about that. He said that the reason he's hesitant to do the discogram is, for those of you who don't know what a discogram is, they essentially inject your disc with dye so that they can see exactly what's going on with the disc. And I don't know a whole lot about it, but the thing that he was hesitant about was that when they do a discogram, the injection actually causes a very tiny injury to the disc. Now, of course, the disc is injured already, but I guess it's really difficult to inject the person where the initial injury was. So there's a really good chance you're going to inject them into a part of I think it's called the annulus, the outside of the disc, where it wasn't severed or whatever. I don't know, where it wasn't injured before. And so, if you cause a tiny injury, that could eventually get worse. So it's kind of like, I don't know, like in a book, if you have a little tear in a page and it's a book that you're reading all the time, eventually that tear gets a little bigger, a little bigger, a little bigger. I think that's what he's concerned about. Why further damage the disc? On the other hand, he wants to be sure that this disc either should be left alone or should be operated on. And that's a valid point. So I'm going to make a phone call and see what he thinks about that. I'm going to give him some time to think because, today being November 8th, and I have almost 2 months before the surgery. That's plenty of time for him to think about whether or not he wants to do a discogram and then to have it. I will have my pre-admission testing on December 18th. I'm told that's a full-day event from other people who have gone to this hospital. Not only do they do all your testing, but you will also take some kind of a class that tells you what to expect from the surgery and after surgery and the things that you'll need and the things that you'll need to do and things like that. So that's really reassuring because the more information that I can have, the better. And more information always feels good for me to have. So a couple weeks ago when I had that flare-up with my back, the problem with me going to work every day was that my poor students had to watch me really, really struggle, and I was barely mobile. And one day one of my students walked in with this tall, skinny Amazon box, and someone just came home. She brought me a grabber, and this is like the Cadillac of grabbers. It's got a little magnet at the end, and it's got one of these little pegs so you can pull things towards you. Okay, I'm going to end the video here because apparently I'm going to have company. So I will leave another video after I have my pre-admission testing. Till then,